What's the real difference between them and them? They're both trapped in a box that neither of them can escape on their own willpower. Both have been filled with something by someone, and eventually it will destroy them from within. They both are experiencing a state of death, but the only difference between the two is that one of them has a chance to live.
It's real rough because I feel like no one understands. I really do.
It's hard to show them how to do y equals mx plus b, and they're hungry.
A lot of people don't really know what we really went through.
When they first had a lottery in Maryland, funds were supposed to go to education. Where are they?
Somebody is literally dying. There's a whole group of young men being killed figuratively and literally by a judicial system that was set up against them.
If there was one thing in life you would change, what would it be?
I live hand to mouth. If I work today, I guess we eat today.
Traveling across the country to many different cities and many different states, talking to many different people from many backgrounds, I found one thing to be the same: the souls of the people living in impoverished condition. People living outside of these places only see the results of the struggles that come with living here. They see the shortcomings, the drug abuse, the prison rates, the violence, and all the actions that stem from the constant thoughts and feelings of entrapment. But their dull and black souls go unnoticed. For many people, those vibrant colors resting in their hopeful souls are stripped away at an early age because they are deprived of the only thing they are entitled to at birth: a mother and a father. The number of children growing up in homes that are missing one of these parents today is stunning, but no other place in America is more devastating than our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., where 1 in 1.5 children only know and live with one parent. Some don't know either parent, yet they are still expected to be able to dream and exude the same colors as their peers who have parents at their side throughout their lives. Without question, being forced to grow up already disadvantaged initiates the dimmings of our souls that will last a lifetime.
The best day ever was when I got to see my father on my birthday. It was my 10th birthday.
The most pain I ever felt was when my father said he is going to come get me for the weekend, and he never did.
Growing up with no pops, I mean, when I was young, to tell you the truth, I never really knew him, so it wasn't nothing to it. I mean, I just knew it was me and mom's, it was me and her against the world. But as I got older and I started to see that, I needed, you always need that man in your life to, to show you the way. Moms could teach me so much, but she couldn't teach me how to be a man. I remember one instance when I was young, and she had took me to my father, and she was like, I can't do it. You know what I'm saying? She just dropped me off, and then that hurt it, because the whole time when she left, all my father did was take me to my aunt. So I felt like, Nobody wanted me. I lost my father about 2 and some change ago to a heart attack. And to be honest with you, it broke me. It broke me down. I was at work, and when I got the call, and I broke down right at work. And I always thought to myself, like, if something was to happen, you know what I'm saying, it was like, you know what I'm saying. But I ain't think that I was gonna go down like that. Like, I'm talking about, I was boo-hooing. So I mean, that just showed me, even though he wasn't always there like he was supposed to be, that was him. He was still, you know what I'm saying. I still had him in my chest.
My relationship with my father has been, well, almost non-existent, to tell you the truth. My father has had a ability to show up in my life every 15 years or so. Last time I saw my father, I was 35. My mother explained to me the story about why my father was absent. And knowing my grandmother, yeah, he had pretty much the right idea to be afraid. But as far as that, we don't have a typical father-son relationship. My father gives me advice sometimes when I see him, or I'll give him advice whenever I see him, and you know, that's about it. Mostly it's just about, you know, he asks me how I'm doing, if he's got grandkids by me yet, or he wants to know how they're doing whenever I see him. I don't see him as often as I probably think I would like, but far as him being an actual fixture in my life, no, that wasn't the case.
My mom's house is more, I guess I would call it more open, because everybody interacts a lot more, and it's just, everybody shares everything, basically. It's just like we're more one of a unity. My father's house, everybody pretty much has their own space. We still go places, do stuff together as a family, but we mostly kind of do our own thing. I have more alone time, I guess, as opposed to being at my mother's house, where everybody sort of shares a lot and cohabitating.
I mean, it was times I wanted my father to be there, but it was up to him to be there if he wanted to. I tried to look for love at other places, but I mean, it just wasn't working. And then I realized that I had my mother, and at the end of the day, that's who was gonna be there for me. Yeah, so I had to do what I had to do to graduate on time, and just be focused on my dreams, and make my mother proud.
I miss a person that I never really knew. You know, that's the way I look at it. But at the same time, as I got older and I did get a chance to interact with him, what little I did know of him, I wanted to know more. And I reached out to him before when I was younger, for him to, you know, just to come just hang out with me, maybe show up at something for my school or something, whatever school I was in at that particular time. And then I let it happen the way it's going to happen. He was going to be a part of it, he wasn't. And that's the way I looked at it. I still look at it that way. I mean, if my father wanted to be a part of my life, as far as me coming up as a child, I'm quite sure he would have been able to make a little more of an effort than he did. But that's, you know, a decision based on individuality.
Not a lot of my friends had both of their parents. Some didn't have either. Most was raised by grandparents. Some was raised by aunts, uncles, but some lived with their friends.
Growing up, struggle was real without my father. You know, it just been mom, grandparents and stuff like that, sisters around and stuff. I had a past when I was younger. I used to get suspended and stuff from school. I used to go to Southeast Academy up the street on MLK. Used to fight, get suspended like every other day, stuff like that. But as I I got kicked out of public schools, and I had to go to private schools in Virginia. So that kind of taught me a lot, you know, for me being where I'm at now. Like people couldn't tell I was that way back then, but you know, without my father, I just had to, you know, grow up and make decisions on my own that he couldn't be there to tell me like, this is right, this is right. I just had to look and observe from other people, you know, learn from that, you know, and from Mom Dukes, you know, being there for me. When I used to get in trouble, she just do like everything she could to try to save me from being like on the streets and stuff, but you know, that helped me too. And a lot of people ask me how I changed and stuff, because it was because of her. Like I seen her cry from me doing that stuff. So after I seen that, I made in my mind like I had to do better and stuff like that. So after that, I changed in like not sure a year, but I changed. Started getting my act together.
Let's get it.
I came from nothing. I came from nothing. Trying to be something. I came from nothing. I came from nothing, yeah. I came from nothing. Trying to be something. I came from nothing. I came from nothing, yeah. I came from nothing. Trying to be something. I came from nothing, yeah. I came from nothing. I came from nothing. Trying to be something.
Our present day lives are many times a reflection of our past, and the scars never go away. It may not always be painful, but the resemblance of what once was will always remain. It determines how we parent our children, for better or for worse. But even when we make the best decisions for our children, in spite of our own scars, we are sometimes placed in unfortunate circumstances, which allows the cycle to continue.
His dad and I, we never got married, so his home is in an area nearby, and we're here. So we share responsibilities to some degree, but there was a large period of time when my son was with me. So maybe about, when did you go start staying with your dad now? Is that 15 or 14? About 14? Okay. So about 14, he stayed with his dad a little bit more. But up until then, he was with me. Some of the struggles in raising, being a single parent, in a single parent home and raising children would be finances, would be one of the struggles of being a single parent. Another one of the struggles would be balancing. I have 4 girls and 1 son. So a lot of women and then just 1 son. So some of the single parent struggles as a woman can be difficult in terms of raising a son, and particularly once he gets to that adolescent age. Another struggle is dealing with the actual interactions, the way you have to interact with your son, which is different from interacting with your daughter. So learning those skills or learning how to do that effectively is another struggle as a single parent mom, when you can't automatically bounce off his dad some issues. He's not there to pick up the pieces if I, as the mother, do not know exactly what to say or how to approach a situation.
I have 3 children. I have 1 son, 16. I have 2 daughters, 13 and 12. My kids don't live with me right now because I don't have a place of my own. If I had a place of my own, I probably have, well, with the exception of my son in California, my 2 daughters would probably be with me right now. Or at least have, you know, a place to come visit me, and they can do whatever they want. Right now, what's stopping me from having a place of my own is that the state of Maryland, the employment rate's still kind of high as far as the nation is concerned. We're like maybe still in the top 10 of highest states in the unemployment rate, and I'm having a hard time finding a job. So as we all know, can't get around too much for free. But I'm doing what I gotta do, using my due diligence, things of that nature. Playing my connections I have, what few I have, to try and find me gainful employment. You know, right now, it's just a waiting game.
Then I ended up having my son Alfonso at 19, finished school, graduated, and moved in with his father. And I thought everything was going to be peaches and cream, but it didn't turn out like that. I guess I was looking for love in all the wrong places. But me, I just had motivation to do better. To this day, I work every day and try to get my kids the best I can. I know what it's like being on public assistance. I was on public assistance. I was homeless. I was pregnant with my daughter Tasia, and my son was 9, and I didn't have a place to go. My kids' grandparents took him in while I went to the shelter and had my daughter. We had to live. After I had her, we had to go to a shelter. I stayed there for 6 months until we got our own place. Then, after I had her, 6 weeks later, I found I was pregnant with Carlton. It wasn't easy being with their father, you know, dealing with a person that was on drugs, and I was still trying to make ends meet, going to work and taking care of kids. 3 kids by myself. It's hard, but I did it. When me and him went our own separate ways, I was working 2 jobs and still trying to support and take care of my kids. It's not easy, but I did it plenty of times that I wanted to give up and throw the towel in, but I knew I couldn't because I had my kids. I know what it's like when you this close being evicted. And I had to call my oldest son and say, look, we about to get evicted. I don't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? And had to tell Tasia and Carl, look, I can't do it. Paying bills all by myself, trying to make sure they got food. It's times that we didn't have food, but we was determined to have fried potatoes every day, hot dogs or whatever. And like I said, it's been a struggle, but I'm here. I can say I've been on public assistance for a long time. I've been on my job for 14 years. I'm a chef at Marriott. And I put my dreams on hold because I want my kids to be the best they can be.
To my ex-husband, it didn't turn out that way like I would have liked it, so he's not as active at all. But for my son's dad, he's more active than any of my other 2 children's dads. I think it affects them a lot because they're able to see the dynamic in the household, one, with the fact that my son's dad is involved, and it reminds them more of the fact that their dad isn't as involved in their lives as much as they would like it to be. And oftentimes they've had small sibling arguments over that because they feel like their brother gets a lot and he doesn't recognize that he has the best of both worlds in a sense. But they have a difficult time when they need their dads and they're not available or they aren't around for them. So that's been a struggle as a single mom, which has also been a challenge. Choices of my own, but yet as a single mom, I have to figure out how to make it right for my children in order for them to make better decisions in terms of relationships. For my life in terms of building my dreams and being a single parent, I have put a lot of things on the back burner. I was a fine arts major, theater arts, acting was one of my goals in college, of course, and that didn't happen. I had my daughter in freshman year, and when I graduated Howard University, I was pregnant with my son. So those choices that I made, I realized moving forward that I kind of had to step back a little bit with my life and make sure that I focused on my children. They became the most important. So dreams haven't been fulfilled yet. I'm just kind of working to make sure that they have what they need. And I guess personally, I just feel like I'll pick up the pieces at some point for myself. But right now, everything is pretty much done.
I would say that they're definitely not satisfied. I know my youngest daughter is definitely not satisfied. But she also understands that I'm doing what I got to do to better me so I can be a better father for her. Now, if things had happened a little better and that the situation between her mother and I wasn't what it was, I'm quite sure that the situation between my daughter and I would be a whole lot better. My youngest daughter, my middle daughter, my oldest daughter rather. Her mother seems to think that it's a good idea, as they say, to keep up with the Joneses. So now my daughter is developing this materialistic thing where she's got to have the latest, the hottest things out all the time. And her mother's complaining about working 2 jobs to get it for her. And I keep telling her, that's a monster you created. I try to help out where I can, when I can, but I don't make any promises that I know I can't keep. My mother likes to try and downplay me, down talk me to her sometimes, but I don't think she, from the conversations I've had with my daughter, she really doesn't listen. She knows her father's trying, and he's always going to be there, no more than a phone call away if she needs it. I work things out between my children best I can. For me to be 100% active in my kids' life, or have more of a proactive as to opposed to a reactive role in my kids' life, it's going to take me being able to be employed a little more gainful employment, something where, if something happens, God forbid, I can be able to take care of whatever they need right away without having to wait. I understand that sometimes, money is not everything, but at the same time, you still need money just to get along and to get by. And sometimes it's just not there when I need it. I do suffer from the same thing most men suffer from. I'm a prideful man. I really don't like asking for help. I feel as though my situations, I created them, I can handle them myself. But sometimes, just sometimes, I gotta ask for help. Might not like it, but I do. Right about now, I think the time that I'm missing with my kids, somewhere down the line will be reflected upon. As it being a bad thing, I can't really say, but I'm trying to be what I can to my children right now with the time that I do a lot outside of looking for a job, because finding employment nowadays is a full-time job. And I let my kids know that I'm not giving up on them, but I'm trying to better myself to better take care of them.
Being a single parent, you learn a lot. And being in DC, I learned a lot. I'm just blessed because my kids are not on the streets. They could be with the wrong crowd. They could be on drugs. They could be drinking. I had to change my lifestyle first for my kids to see what type of person I am. And I think that by me changing myself, they respect me a lot more. And one time, I didn't want to come down to their level, but I had to. And for me to be able to communicate a lot better between my son and my daughter, I had to come down to their level. Where I was from, you couldn't date at a certain age. When she told me she wanted to date, I'm like, what?
To me, the most important aspect of fatherhood is learning from your mistakes as a child and try to guide your children away from those same mistakes. Now you can't be there unless you live with your children and have a steady hand in guiding them through life's ups and downs. It's possible, but it's not etched in stone that we're all going to be able to do that for our children. Sometimes you have to let them learn on their own what mistakes are and let them learn from their mistakes that they make. You can't just hold a hand and, as they say, spoon feed them through life. That's not going to help them. If anything, it's going to show them how to be reliant upon somebody when they really should be self-sufficient.
Raising children alone comes with its own challenges. Being absent from your children's lives for whatever reason will also have long-lasting effects. And without the proper resources to supplement the emotional, mental, and physical lack within both the parent and child's life, all parties are left to feel their way through already tough times. Parents mask their pain how they see fit in order to be viewed as being strong and able to manage, but children carry the pain with them everywhere they go.
As a teacher, from a professional standpoint, and seeing other children that are not mine, who grow up in single-parent homes, and I think most of the times it's like grandparents are actually raising them more so than either parent. So it begins to be another cycle in their life that they have to go through because they're unable to relate. You can tell the difference between which students have difficulty with females and which students have difficulties with men. And when you see that, you can recognize that by how they interact with you. So a lot of it is emotional. They begin to be needy a lot. They want a lot. They will ask for money from adults. It doesn't matter who it is, so there's no limits for their distance between another adult that they may or may not know. So they haven't been given any boundaries. So the anger, the emotion, lack of boundaries, and lack of connection to people becomes a difficult measure. So to actually teach them is very hard to do because as teachers we become their parent, we become their confidant. Some of us oftentimes become their parent. We may do things for them. A number of students just had a prom. We had to donate for actual dresses and clothing. So those kinds of things that they're looking for in teachers goes way beyond the academic profession. And we find ourselves being more of counselors than we are of educators. And they can't focus on education. It's hard to talk about Christopher Columbus. It's hard to show them how to do y equals mx plus b and they're hungry. Or I don't know where I'm gonna sleep tonight. Or, my mom just was fighting or kicked me out because her boyfriend didn't like me. And so I really have to find out where I'm gonna go this evening. And so those kinds of things are on their mind that as a teacher, I wouldn't even fathom and haven't experienced.
Not far from the nation's capital are thousands of children struggling with these same issues in silence. But across the city, children are further stunted when they leave home to attend a school that is supposed to equip them with the necessary tools to experience a life above the poverty line. The state of Maryland basks in the praise of being ranked the #1 place in America to receive a public education for 5 consecutive years. But within those 5 years, the state's largest city, Baltimore, has failed continually as a whole and is constantly overlooked by the state and the nation. The policymakers, the allocation of funds, and many other problems have damaged a system that no one knows how to fix. Students receiving a quality education are forced to fight continually as it is threatened annually by budget cuts. They too advocate for those who show no concern for learning. Their discouraged souls reveal the belief that they are not entitled to this quality education our country boasts about, especially when their underperforming high schools are just 20 minutes away from some of the top performing schools in the nation.
So I went to elementary, middle, and high school in Montgomery County, Maryland, which is not far from Baltimore City. And I had such a different experience when I was in school. I mean, it is truly the thing probably that makes me the saddest. Because if you look at the statistics for Maryland, Maryland is the #1 state for public education in the country, ranked by, all of the world reports and all that stuff. Like, this is the state to be in to get a good public education, but not if you live in Baltimore. Baltimore is the biggest city in Maryland, so why does it have one of the most dysfunctional school systems in the country if this is such a great state for education? It doesn't make sense. When I was in school, I went to public school. My public school, high school, Whitman, it was just ranked the #1 public high school in Maryland. Maybe it was even in the country, I don't know, but it was ranked really highly. We had like so many activities, so many opportunities, so many different skills you could learn. You could be on the newspaper like I was, or you could be on the yearbook, or you could do the televised announcements, or you could do literally any sport from crew to golf, or you could do like participate in their huge week-long art show, or you could be in one of their plays, or their musical, or their chorus, or their band, or their orchestra. Like, it was never-ending activities, it was never-ending exposure, ways for kids to build up their resume, to connect with the community, to do all kinds of things. But one thing that they didn't ever teach us was that that's not how it is everywhere.
As an assessment administrator, I do testing for the National Assessment of Educational Progress. So I go from Baltimore County to Howard County to Baltimore City, and we give the nation's report card test, which is where they get what fourth graders should know and be able to do. I tested fourth graders and eighth graders. To go to the city and see some of the attitudes and the lack of respect, not being on time, the language, just the low functioning ability of eighth graders. And then you go to the county, Howard County or Baltimore County, and it's completely different. I mean, you have a couple of kids that are, not doing what they're supposed to do, but for the most part, everybody did what they were supposed to do for testing. Where I went to a school in the city, the kids were all over the place. They couldn't even take the test. They couldn't read it. It's just very disparaging.
My experiences at both schools have made one thing very obvious to me, and that's we are all judged based on where we come from. Although most Baltimore City public school students are African American, race is nowhere near as stigmatizing as the neighborhoods you were raised in. I was raised by a single mother in the southwest area of Baltimore City. My mother, my grandmothers, and my godmother worked very hard to protect me from the reality of growing up where I did. However, having to step over drug paraphernalia and avoiding abandoned houses on my way to school every morning was a constant reminder that I had to focus a little more to get where I wanted to be. Once I reached the 9th grade, I began high school. The school I attended was very big on discipline and work ethic. Yet and still, even with all the training, the uniforms we wore, the correct grammar we used, everywhere we went, we were never just students or interns. We were always the inner city kids. No matter how hard we worked, our backgrounds will continue to follow us. Every class of 2014 member has that one thing in common. No matter what side we grew up on, who we hung up with, there's always something about you that people will try to use against you. In the eyes of those with a bit more of an advantage, we're the underdogs. The fact that you made it this far is a testimony of your ability to overcome anything trying to hold you back.
In a district where teachers are paid a starting salary of over $40,000, the highest starting salary in the state, the Board of Education often scapegoats on their level of effectiveness in the classroom. While that is certainly an issue that contributes to the detriment of our children's minds, some teachers operate at highly effective levels and are still unable to adequately do their jobs for various internal factors that no one will acknowledge to avoid having to address it.
The kind of school that I taught at, there's a lot of undiagnosed emotional issues, and like I had kids who had severe disturbances, and they might come to school one day without their medication, and they would be just like going off, and it would be really dangerous for everybody, including me, but especially the other students and that particular student. And like you would call the office and no one would come. Like you would have a student threatening to jump out the window and no one would come. Like, and you have 20, 25, 30 other kids that you have to make sure are safe, and then you have the one student who is like threatening actual harm to themselves or to the other students in the class or to you. And you're just supposed to deal with it, and you're supposed to keep teaching. Like they tell me, oh, just keep teaching, just ignore her, and I'm like, I can't, and neither could you. And the fact that you're even saying that to me tells me that you don't really care what's going on in this classroom. You just want to say, like, I'm wrong if I stop the class and do what's necessary to help this student. Like, that's wrong because I'm not teaching anymore. It can be hard to focus on academics in an environment where there's so much else going on wrong. So as much as I came in and tried to teach every day, like with fidelity, and make sure my students mastered the lessons and make sure that they did well on the test and make sure that, they were growing in their reading levels, I was also managing their behavior and emotional progress. And there's no like measure for that. There's no grade for that. You know, not even in pre-K, there's not even a grade for that anymore. So it was hard. And then I had another student whose mom tried so hard to get services for him because he had a disabled brother, and she knew that he was continuing down that similar path, and she was super concerned about him. And I had to go on this IEP meeting for this student, and I felt like I was like at war with my coworkers because they didn't even want to do the tests. Like, I knew he wasn't going to get services. They didn't even want to do the tests, like, because it takes time out of their day, I guess. But I'm like, we should all be here on the same page for this student, which is why we work here. And we're not. And that's wrong. And it's so frustrating. And so, like, you'll have parents who really care and really know their rights and are really trying to exercise those rights. And the school will just block them at every turn. And I don't see why it should be like that.
I think the major reason for underperforming schools in the city has to do with parenting. And I think that's a component that people, politicians, educational leaders are scared to talk about. And I pondered this for a long time. Children learn what they live. And if they don't have the right type of environment in their house, they don't have that parental support, whether positive or negative, I think that all impacts the dynamics in children today. So my number one thing would be parenting. They need that component. You don't have a strong home and a strong background with people with understanding of the importance of education. That's the product that you're going to get. I have a stepson, and as a personal, I guess, testimony, my stepson's mother didn't want to be bothered with him when he was 10. He's deaf and just would not act correctly in school. He had been bounced from school to school to school. She didn't want to take care of him. So my husband and I said, well, let us try. So we tried. And, I took him from the time he was 10 to the time he was 20. And he's doing very, very well. It's amazing when you're with someone you know who loves you and support. Not to say that she didn't, but supports you, cares for you, encourages you, tries. It's a difference. It's a difference in parenting that can be made. And he's doing great. He's, working, taking care of his kids, and trying to be the best father he can be because he saw his dad, become, take an interest in him. And he still sees his mom, but it's funny, he looks to me as his mom because, again, we took care of him, tried to understand him, tried to help him. So, that, and a lot of that does happen, that you see both sides of it. But if I would say one thing, it would be definitely parenting.
For me, back to school night this year, nobody came. And I don't blame them because it was at 3 o'clock right after school and they were at work. Or, why would they come? Because they'd been to however many that were totally pointless. Or they'd been failed by the school in so many different ways. Why would they bother coming? And then people see that, in the inner city, no parents go to back to school night. Well, it's more nuanced than that. Like, there's a lot more to it than just parents who don't care. Like, there's a lot going on. To become a principal in the city, you don't need to take a budget class. You don't need to have any kind of understanding of finance or business. So you have people in unbelievable amounts of power. Like, huge overreaching power over all the operations of the school who aren't equipped for necessarily all of those operations. Like, it's a different skill set to be able to manage a whole social community like a school versus being able to budget like money coming in from the state, especially if you're a turnaround school, which mine was. So we had all this money, there was always money somewhere, but no one ever knew where it was. And it definitely wasn't being used for the students. So that, to me, that's a huge fundamental problem. Like, you have people who are in charge who don't have a robust training model of how to be in charge.
When we would go to our principal meetings as being very vociferous in terms of bringing this fair student funding into the picture. I didn't like it. I talked about it. The names escaped me, but I know that during our meeting, and it was being explained to us. I said, well, where did you come up with this formula? So one of the finance people said, well, my son came up with this formula for fair student funding. I can't describe it for you, you wouldn't know it because you're not a mathematician. I said, wait a minute, hold it. Try me. Let's break it down. So he began to break it down, and of course it was difficult to follow all of the X's and O's, but basically we knew that we were, the school I knew, and the principals of my day and time knew we were being robbed. That money, even when I listen to talk shows today and they say 20-something thousand or 14,000 per student, people are actually hearing that and they're thinking that it's $14,000 per student. So if you have 87,000 students in the school system, you're thinking, wow, that's a lot of money. No, it's not, because by the time it gets to the classroom, it's less than $5,000. So it's trickery to me. It's trickery. And to put that out there as a broad figure and say that this is what's going to the schools, it's not. And fair student funding is not fair. It's the whole rationale is based on how many children you have in your school. So if you're not advertising your school and saying your school is wonderful, even though you know it is, you're losing that money. Every year I've watched, and I go on the websites, I watch how every year when the enrollment drops, that funding drops, and how people have to, we were told, be creative. So I got all the books and went to classes and all of that to figure out how am I going to make this work with this amount of money I have, and it's impossible.
The fact that at a school like the one I taught at, a huge number of students might have undiagnosed emotional or behavioral or just social maladjustment or disabilities has a huge impact on the entire school, not even just that particular student. And this is something you see across the grade levels. It starts in pre-K, it goes all the way to 5th grade or 8th grade or however the school goes, and it's horrible, the effect that it can have. And then what's even more horrible is how hard it is to get help. When my first year, I had a student, I will never forget this little boy, even though I only had him for a few months. He was just so unbelievably out of control. He was so violent. He would bite me. He would throw chairs at other kids. He spit in a little girl's face on the first day of school. He clearly had severe anger issues and no recourse for learning how to manage his anger. And he was in an unstable home. They lived in transitional housing across the street from the school. And I tried to get help. I went to get help from our assistant principal one day, and I was like, this child just bit me, he's assaulting me and the other students, he really needs help, I don't know what to do, I'm a new teacher. And she was just she was on her computer, and she didn't even look up from her computer, she was just are you gonna press charges? And I was like, am I gonna press charges against a 4-year-old? That's all you care about? Not what's wrong with this child, what can we do to help him? How can we reach out to his mother? What kind of services does he need? Does he maybe need medication, therapy, whatever?
When our children feel like they aren't wanted at home and they aren't valued in school, it creates a void in their hopeful souls that causes them to look for a place of belonging, a place where they feel valued and worthy of something. The top 2 places they find ready to accept them are the streets and the church. Sometimes, though, in both of these places, individuals completely lose a sense of self and find their souls damaged even more when all they really want is a family.
When I sit and talk and have meetings or consultations or whatever with parents, when I talk to them, many of them go through a lot within themselves, and really because of their upbringing. Maybe they've been in bad relationships. Most of the women who I talk to and my wife and I have counsel with, many of them come out of real bad relationships. And so, when you're in a bad relationships, it really gets to a point where, their mentality is different. The way they look at themselves are different. They may be the most beautiful woman in the world, but what they see in the mirror is completely different.
So let me say this. I love your honesty and the fact that you're self-aware and you're ready to talk about an area of growth, because that's who we are as gems. We recognize our brilliance and our beauty, but we also know that we have areas of growth. And what I'm asking you for now, Brianna, is what's beautiful about you? What's something brilliant about Brianna?
I believe many people in the urban communities are lost because it's no refuge. It's nobody really coming back to get them. Many times I talk to, not many times, but oftentimes I talk to different artists, recording artists, some of which who have made it, or just high-end professional business people. And we forget, even preachers, we forget where we come from. You know, we forget who we are. And so we don't go back to those communities where we were, reach out and get them and bring them to the understanding of what life really is all about. But it's just sad that many of them are lost because nobody educate them. To me, I believe education plays a major factor in why our communities are lost. You know, we don't stimulate them, meaning to strive to do better. We don't educate them, you know, on how to go to school, not just elementary, middle, or high, but go to college, get a degree, you know, and neither do we talk to them about, you know, just being all out successful, you know, so they don't know. It's a lost generation that don't know because many people fail to go back and retrieve them and give them the knowledge that they need, you know, and to succeed.
So how do people decide what becomes popular, what becomes trendy?
Well, where I live, it's like a copy-paste thing, like monkey see, monkey do. So if one person comes out and want to be different and they wear something, it seems like everybody else has to get it. Then it becomes popular, and then it becomes known, all because of that one person.
Can I purchase something from a cheap store and it becomes a trend?
No.
Why not?
Well, because it's just like the way people where I live have their mindset. It's like if, say like something was cute and people know it's cute and they want to say it's cute, but then they'll be like, oh, where did you get that from? And then you'll say like, oh, I got this from Marshall's, or I got this from Rainbow, or something like that. And then it's a whole nother story like, oh no, that's cheap, or I don't want that. If it's not name brand, something that everybody's wearing, it's not good.
And what do you think about that?
Well, I think that it's really stupid.
What's really stupid?
I think it's stupid how, like, our society has their mind set up like that. You want to look like you have money, but you have no money. Or it's not even all about money, you have no education, but you're worried about belts and Gucci hats and stuff like that, but you have no education.
We need to have a discussion about unity first, love second, and have a discussion about fear third. And the reason why I say love, unity, love, and fear is because these three corridors are the main vessels that we must talk about and reestablish and get rid of the fear so that people can understand who they are. Growing up as a young man, you know, I don't have any brothers or sisters. I'm the only child. My parents still together, married 41 years, almost 42 years. But I even struggled with understanding who I was. And so I grew up, did great. I had my pitfalls, just like any other urban teenager. Had my pitfalls, had my first daughter, I was 19 years old. Got married when I was 19, been married now for 13 years. 12 years this year. And so knowing how to look at obstacles, jump over them, but I had a good support group. So when young people come to me, particularly they looking for love, they grew up, let's say a young man grew up in an urban neighborhood where he didn't really have much, but his friends, the core friends came around, just like many of us do, have good friends. And, you know, the older ones come around and kind of persuade them into doing things. And most of the young people who I've worked with, they get involved with gangs, not really because of violence. Some of them really go because that's where they found refuge. That's where they can vent to when they had different issues in life. When they didn't have any money, We didn't have any, any school supplies. It goes beyond the violence. This was really a family. And many of them, when I talk to them, they always talk about this is more of a core family. When I talk to Bloods, I have people who I've mentored that's with Bloods and Crips and all BGF, all type of gang-related families or units. But at the end of the day, the number one thing they're looking for and has been is acceptance and love. And so that's what we try to help them understand. You don't have to do the violent thing. You could be loved without having to do any violent activities.
So tell me what gang you chose to join.
BGF 276, ranks, Fox, J, BL.
Can you explain the ranks?
The ranks. Fox, that's when like you first get into it, like that you ain't fully BGF 55. J, you officially BGF, and BM, they like over top of J people, like our organization. BM, they over top of us, like we gotta follow directions from them.
So why do you call yourself BGF?
Why we call this ourselves BGF? Because we black, we live in a state of guerrilla warfare, we a family. I just started from the jail back in like 1960s. The jail was called Quintet.
San Quentin.
Yeah, San Quentin. San Quentin prison. George Jackson shot up the jail. So that's where all originated started from.
What's the official way?
Yeah, the official way is you gotta get locked up, do some time, a couple years, just to become BGF.
What type of directions they give you?
Like orders, like they send us like on a mission or something like that. We gotta do it or we get beat, basically. We get sanctioned.
What does it take to become BM?
Probably gotta be in there for like 10 to 20 years of BGF. It's a long time. It's a lot of work you gotta know, a lot of things you gotta order.
How long have you been with BGF?
I've been BGF for 5 years.
So tell me what gang you chose and why.
I chose Crenshaw Mafia because most of the people I hung around was Crenshaw. The initiation process was getting beat up by 5 people.
Getting beat up to what point?
For the 31 seconds.
So after you get beat up for 31 seconds, consider in. Imagine for 31 seconds being brutally beaten by 5 individuals, hitting, kicking, stomping, punching, spitting, choking, and bashing your head into the ground. It may not seem like a long time, but not many people make it through. The idea is that only the strong survive, and if you're alive at the end of the 31 seconds, you're a part of the family. How long have you been a Blood?
For almost 2 years.
What made you decide to join BGF?
I used to hang with a lot of them back when I was in middle school, high school. My brothers, all of them, they convinced me to become BGF.
What did they say to the convention?
That was robbing. They was just telling me how the organization was, how the paperwork go, like that.
What type of paperwork you gotta do?
Nah, you just gotta study. Study the paperwork, be sure you gotta be able to share it always.
you have to study while you're in BGF?
Like, like 22s, 33s.
And what are they?
Directions. So that you gotta follow on the street. You don't follow, you get sanctioned.
Has BGF changed over the last 5 years?
Changed a lot because BGF people killing each other out here nowadays. People not following directions. This is wild shit. Everybody locked up. There's only a couple of us. There's only a couple of BGF members out here. And people just don't follow directions out here. We supposed to function like go to meeting every Sunday. People don't do that. People don't function. They don't listen. And a lot of change. No, I don't feel like BGF is a fan no more because people, well, BGF be trading on people, each other. Like, they rob each other, kill each other for nothing. People will take the grave to get out BGF.
And is that you dying or you getting killed trying to get out?
You getting killed trying to get out.
How do you benefit from
You really don't benefit from it much. They just talk your head and talk to your family and all that shit. But when stuff really do happen, most of them never did.
Do you still feel the same about the gang as you did when you originally joined?
No, I don't feel the same way about it. Because it's phony. Like, most of them don't even know what they want to be in. Like, they just join just to be in something. So I mean, they don't feel like they're something like, but they're not.
Have your brothers been there for you in tough situations?
Yeah, about 2 or 3 of them. Have 2 or 3 of my brothers have been there for me when I needed. But other than that, none of the other ones was. I was joining it every day. I didn't experience murder. I didn't see people get robbed, people get shot, people get stabbed, people selling drugs and everything else. Shooting that.
And those are the type of missions that promote people in the gang?
They're the type of missions that promote people to get higher ranks in the gang.
What is the highest rank you've experienced in this city?
A whole lot. The only ways out is in the body bag. Or if they election out. And that should still come consequences.
What do you think of the youth today that are joining gangs?
My opinion of the youth that's joining the gangs these days is that they don't really have no family. And that's the whole point of them joining, so they can feel like they got family, but they really don't. At the end of the day, ain't none of them gonna be there for them.
So the children try to rebound and go from there, and then later on you'll find that through it all, that child grows up with a great understanding of purpose and desire and be loved, you know, and kind of grow, and so they find themselves.
So what types of things make you feel good about yourself?
It's like you know, which makes me like types of things that make me feel good about myself is like, let's just say, for example, let's just say I got my hair done, I got some new shoes, new pants, new shirt, and like people compliment me, and even when people don't compliment me, I know I look nice, so I think that's one of the reasons.
So how do you feel if you are not able to get nice things, are not able to get, name brand things like a lot of other people that you may see around you? How would you feel if you fell into that situation?
I don't think that I would feel like really no different than how I would feel like how I feel already. I don't think I would feel any different because at the same time, my mother can easily do my hair, and the stuff that I wear doesn't have to be name brand. It can still be pretty or make me look nice.
How do you think a lot of your friends feel when they are not able to get name brand things?
Well, some of my friends feel like, and I don't think it's like right, but some of my friends feel like name brand stuff is what builds their self-esteem, or they need name brand stuff to brag about it or something like that.
Why do you think that is?
It just seemed like it's like mainly at my school, mainly because like when we at school, kids can wear like just regular stuff and I'll be like, it's nice. And then like other people would just be like, oh, well, they not true religions or they not sevens. And it don't have to be like name brand stuff. But like every time my friends come to school, if they got like true religions or any other name brand things, they'll keep making it noticeable that they have on that stuff. That's why I feel that way.
So do you feel like when you see certain people come to school with those things, is it because they're trying to look a certain way, or can they actually afford these things to have?
Well, I think it's that they're trying to look a certain way. Like, well, my grandmother always say like keeping up with the Joneses, whatever. I forgot the name. Like,
So how do you think that affects their self-esteem if they're not able to keep up with the Joneses?
well, I think like they'll be like, oh, I'm not going outside if, like, they'll whine about this stuff until they can get it, like, so they can't get it. I think they'll be just like really disappointed and have like low self-esteem.
So what do you think kids should base their self-esteem off of?
Well, I think that they should base their self-esteem on education and achievements.
And in your community, what do you see the adults basing their self-esteem off of?
Well, I'm going to use if you go right down the street and it's like a store right there, you can see like a whole bunch of men talking about who have more money than each other or who did this, and like drug dealers, and they'll say about Gucci belts and Louis Vuitton belts and all type of name brand things.
What's most ironic is the men standing on this particular corner are all Christians. And in the very next block are 4 different churches that neither of them attend. They are all of different denominations and doctrines. And I wonder if these churches even know that some of their Christian brothers are out on this corner 7 days a week, struggling to keep up with fads that are imposed on them by others. They are searching for themselves, and because they cannot be found, they are seeking to emulate someone who appears to have found themselves in material things.
So when people come, the only thing they see is church and how to do church, but they don't feel the love that the church is supposed to really give. And so when you're sitting in a church and you've never been there before, or even if you have been there a dozen times, but you don't feel no connection, like is a disconnect there, oftentimes it's because nobody has taken the extra step or the extra measure to go about to bring these people in. And when they get in, because they come in messed up, they come in tore up, brutalized, humiliated, in total disgust of life. And so when they don't feel that love and that comfort, they're going to leave even worse than what they came in. So it doesn't matter how much preaching I do. I can preach, I can stand on chairs, I can spin around, do somersaults. All that at the end of the day doesn't mean nothing if I don't reach out to them. And as a church, we don't show them the love and the comfort that they need to survive. The religious community can partner with the neighborhood, the neighborhood community, the way that we used to. There was a time where the churches or the religious community would, like, it was nothing to see everybody in the neighborhood on Sunday morning at the local neighborhood church. It was nothing to see that. I mean, that was mama, grandma, aunt, uncle, cousins, nieces, and everybody went to church on Sundays. Now, if the religious community go back to coexisting with the neighborhood, there would be a greater impact in the neighborhood, and there would be a less crime rate even in the most dangerous areas, because there's something for the young people to do. It's something for the adults to do. Even something for grandma to do that will cause everybody's mind to be busy focusing on how to build or rebuild in the community. So I believe it is our time to relaunch, rebuild, reestablish what once was, to make our communities a lot better. The pastors of today, in my personal opinion, and y'all know I'm out there with I tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. We got to get from our Benzes, get from our Maseratis, our big time cars and luxury living. And there's nothing wrong with that, to each his own, whatever the case may be. But we need to go out there and walk the neighborhood. You know, I often ask pastors all the time, when was the last time you got out of your office and walked the neighborhood? When was the last time you knocked on somebody's door that you did not know? Invite them over to church instead of being just laid up like we're untouchable. Like, we are not untouchable. We are supposed to be touchable people. We partner with a local school in our community. No other churches have done that. No church even thought about doing something like that. But my question to the principal of the school was, why haven't you all built a strong foundation with the local church? And that principal, with tears in her eyes, said that the churches don't really think about us. But yet our children attend the church. Well, I told the principal that has now all changed.
Some of us searching for an identity end up with one that consists of a series of numbers that identify us in the prison system. Trapped behind these bars, we experience a level of despair that many times demobilizes us for the rest of our lives. Our souls are stripped completely when we are sentenced to live in legal slavery. This billion-dollar prison industry contracts with some of our favorite retail stores in order for them to utilize prison labor for free or next to nothing. These companies don't have to pay the wages, never have to worry about an employee missing work, calling out, or showing up on time. There's no vacation, sick leave, or medical insurance costs that are incurred by these retail stores we give our money to. And all of this is protected under the 13th Amendment, where it reads that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment of a crime whereof the party shall be duly convicted, shall exist within the United States.
First of all, the system is set up where they force you to work, basically, because the only way you get time off your sentence is if you work. You work, you get 5 days a month off of your end of your sentence. You go to school, you get 5 days a month off of your sentence. So it's more of an initiative for you to do these things versus the pay, because the pay is only $1 a day. But it still benefits the system more than it benefits you. They give you trades like, while I was incarcerated, I worked in the kitchen. I got certificates for being able to bake bread, things of that nature. The certificate I got for baking bread didn't help me in the street, but it helped the system because it cut the cost of them having to buy bread for inmates in all these prisons when we could just bake it at a cheaper cost and supply all the prisons. I was in jail, I did residential construction and got certified at it. And the way they taught us that was building the jails. So it cut the cost on them having to pay an outside contractor or anybody else to fix the jail or rehabilitate the jail because they had inmates doing it under the guise of teaching you what to do. I mean, they have 50 million shops in prison, but all of them are basically the same thing. It's more beneficial to the system than an inmate. They teach you how. They have mechanic shops where you learn how to work on cars and automobiles. But the cars and automobiles that you learn to work on are officers, the wardens, and things of that nature. They're allowed to come in and they bring their vehicles in for free. And they supposedly teach you how to work on these vehicles. And they get their vehicles repaired for free. And all it costs them, the system, is $1 a day.
I did work while I was in prison. I had several jobs. I worked in the fields, pick cotton, chop trees, dig ditches, and then eventually I worked as an overnight janitor. We call them SSIs, and I would, clean up the block, sweep, mop, and then eventually one of my favorite jobs I got was to work on the yard squad. And it was a cool job because we were outside all day. It was laborious because you had to cut grass, and we're talking about acres and acres of grass with a push lawnmower. But it was just great being outside, to smell fresh grass.
Inmates work tirelessly to earn very few dollars that go back into the prison system for envelopes, stamps, phone calls, and personal items. So they come out with no money, no real job experience, and no hope. At this point, their minds and actions have already begun to reflect the damage done to their souls. But where's the rehabilitation? Where are the programs that once allowed inmates to receive a college education while incarcerated? With the amount of money generated from prison labor, shouldn't some of these funds that are pocketed by private stakeholders be used to create a new life for these individuals?
The one establishing thing that I felt that I could do, that the system could have provided me to rehabilitate myself, was college. I was in a prison, and in my last year of prison, they stopped college. They refused to allow me to get my bachelor's because they cut the program after a year because they felt that people in the prison system shouldn't be allowed the luxury, they say, of getting free college versus people on the street that were going through some hard times getting into college. Even though the reality is the people that are so-called convicts or inmates are the ones who need these educations more. It's harder for an individual who knows nothing or has no other type of knowledge of something to do to be successful other than the streets. You need these type of things. And they cut it. So did I be able to take myself? Yes, because of the things I accomplished. Because the reality is once I was released from the system, none of the certifications, none of the programs that I completed in prison helped me to even get a job. Everywhere I took my certifications or so-called degrees that the prison gave me, people looked at them like they were just what they were, pieces of paper. I mean, my first job I had to get coming out of the system was at a temp agency. And this is a temp agency, I'm not gonna say no names, but temp agency that took drug addicts, whatever. People were sitting in there nodding and they waiting to go on the job while I was in there. So it wasn't like the system did that for me, I did that on my own.
So while I was in prison, I received my GED, and then I started going to college like a few months after that. And so by the time I got out, I was almost a junior in college. I had like 55 or 58 college credits. And so once I realized I was going to make parole, I just transferred to the University of Houston like any other student. I just applied while I was in prison and just sent the envelope through the mail. And so the whole transfer process was normal, except that my transcript was coming from a university that was based inside of the prison system. But it was never questioned by U of H. And so by the time I got out of prison and I went to U of H, it was seamless. When I graduated from the University of Houston, I knew I wanted to go to grad school, and NYU was my top choice, especially for film. And so while at U of H, I would take, classes and summer courses to try to get myself prepared for grad school. And my last year at U of H, I applied to NYU, I got in, and so when I graduated in 2004, I started immediately in grad school at NYU, and then I was at NYU for 3 years of coursework, and then it took another 3 or 4 years after that to complete my thesis film. So I was there for about 7 years.
It is evident that prisons once had the ability to rehabilitate a soul that was once blackened to the point where their actions lacked good judgment. To send someone from prison to one of the top performing schools in the nation is a testament to the fact that souls are not forever lost. However, when we are sending prisoners back out into society, expecting them to succeed in their lives and in the workforce without any education, we're setting them up for failure. No matter where they apply, to jobs or to schools, before they're even asked about their educational background, they are asked the one question every ex-convict hates to answer: have you ever been convicted of a felony or a crime?
When I realized I wanted to be a filmmaker, I was actually in prison. And it just was this weird situation where being isolated, being left alone with your thoughts, left alone with your imagination, just created this environment where you have all these guys who are reading these books. We would devour novels. And your imagination would just run wild because you couldn't leave. There wasn't a lot of stuff to watch. There was nowhere else to go. And so I would just lay in my cell and I could see what I was reading, and I wanted to be involved in it. There was something interesting and creative about it. And although I'd written small stuff out, before I went to prison, it was in prison, I feel like when I really tapped into my imagination and creativity.
It's hard because I still have a family to support, and all these things that I have or try to accumulate in order to be able to be a good provider doesn't help. You know what I mean? The only reason I'm able to still stay out of prison and still accomplish the things I do with the work that I do get is because of me. Because I make an extra effort to obtain things that I didn't get in jail. More work experience, the people I meet, my work ethics. These are all things that I established for myself, and that's basically the only reason I'm able to still survive without returning back to prison, which are things that the system doesn't help to provide.
You know, when you're in prison, the thing you're most aware of is time. And so I was obsessed with the fact that I was going to be behind everyone I went to high school with. And when I was going to get out of prison, I was going to come out, and people were going to be way far along in their lives, you know, with their children and their careers, with their education. I was going to feel like I could never catch up. And this was separate from just having a felony on my record. This was just the feeling of like I lost time, I lost real time. And so when I had the opportunity to go to college and to get an education, the interesting thing is that I was literally in college at the same time as all of my other high school classmates, except I was in prison.
The system is basically a business just like anything else. And the basis of business is making money. And that's what the system does, it makes money. The programs that it provides are made or designed for the system to make money. It's not designed for the inmate to come out differently.
It's really a place where you're trying to balance your sanity, you're trying to balance your emotions, you're trying to, you know, remain as calm and collected as you possibly can in a very fraught, intense environment. And so education was an outlet, it was an escape, and it was also the only building in the prison that had air conditioning. So that was another plus, that everybody was trying to get into school just so they can get out of that Texas heat, get out of working in the fields. But it was a thing that transformed my life.
They don't even have any type of classes that prepare you for how you're supposed to be, how you might be treated, or what you might face coming out in society. I mean, when I came out the door, it was just like, oh, here, look, you released here, leave. They didn't prepare me for how people were going to look at me when I presented these certifications. They didn't prepare me for any of these things. So when I handed these people these certifications, because I'm feeling like I just came out of prison and I've accomplished so much, and I've changed so much, and look what I've done, people looked at me as the same person that I was when I went in the system.
As important as it is, you know, it doesn't exist inside of a vacuum. A lot of those guys come from broken homes. They come from communities where the school is tied to, you know, property taxes. The school does not have the right resources. And so a lot of young men are pushed aside, and then they find themselves in prison, and then people are demanding, well, you're going to get your education, you're going to get your GED, you're going to go to college. And they just simply don't have the tools to do it.
If I would have been able to get my AA or my BA, then maybe they'd have looked past me being an ex-con and looked at me as being an intelligent individual, which is what I eventually became on my own.
As much as I appreciate my opportunities that I've been afforded, I understand that I don't want to be the special one. I don't want to be an anomaly. That this shouldn't be a situation where I'm like the one who made it and is having some success. It should not be that difficult for everybody to turn their lives around, because whether we want to admit it or not, whether you've been in jail or not, we've all made horrendous mistakes, choices, and decisions. And there's a lot of stuff we regret. And we hope that people forgive us for it, that people have compassion, and that people will create a space for us to move forward in our lives. But if we're not really living in that, instead of just talking in it, then what's the point?
Well, now I'm a bouncer. I bounce at different Hispanic bars. I try to pick up as much construction work as I can, possibly here and there. But no real construction company takes my certification as serious because of where it came from. So, I mean, every day is still a struggle day to day, day to day. I live hand to mouth. If I work today, I guess we eat today.
For both men to bear equally damaged souls at the time of their incarceration, being equally intelligent, equally gifted, and equally driven now, they both have very disproportionate lives today. One has not only been afforded an opportunity to go to college, he has been given the power over his own life and destiny. The other, however, has to constantly rehash it, and each time he gets a little more hopeful that because he is so far removed from his crime by time, that someone will give him a chance. Almost 20 years after his release, he is still waiting on that chance.
As much as we talk about criminal justice, as much as we talk about recidivism, what type of programs we can have for inmates in prisons, what type of programs we can have for parolees. The biggest topic that is not discussed is racism and race in general. Race and class, but I would say even more importantly race, because I was in prison with, guys who were white, who came from broken homes, who were impoverished, but they were a small percentage of the prison. Overwhelmingly, the whole place was black and brown. We're talking about 85% of my unit was black and brown, and it completely warps your mind because you understand that there's no difference in terms of circumstances, that just because you are white, black, or Hispanic, or Asian, we all have the same capacity to commit crime and to make a mistake. There's nothing special about black and brown people that's inherently criminal, nothing at all. And yet, when you go into prison in every single state in the whole country, the percentage is completely lopsided. And so for me, that's not random. That is very specific and very much on purpose. And so as much as we talk about criminal justice, if we're not having a conversation about race and racism and how that influences policies, how that influences time, how much time is being given out, how that influences whether somebody's going to be successful when they get out. If you mean to tell me that a black person without a criminal record has the same opportunity as a white person with a criminal record, then we're not talking about percentages, we're talking about racism. I feel like when you begin to have that conversation, then you'll start to see changes everywhere else. But until you have that discussion, for me, it's all a moot point. I don't really see what the point of talking about any program if we're not talking about the true problem, which is ideology, which is real deeply embedded beliefs that people are superior, that people believe that they're special, and it's all unearned and based on nothing but a skin tone. And I believe that a lot of black and brown boys will succeed, will do better if everything is not directly tied to this whole power structure. Like I said, this whole power structure that this country was founded on.
Upon release from prison, many inmates find themselves in the same situation as many other humans that have suffered from the same scars from society. They have no place to call home. The toll taken through the years causes us at this point to see nothing but the darkness. Some people will regard the feeling as being strong, but when all you can see is darkness, you start to believe that no matter the sounds you hear, there is nothing to fear, because nothing good in life really exists.
My experience really being in super close contact with people who are homeless, and I was really young when I moved down there and lived with people, and it really changed me in many ways because it sort of it exposed you to this reality that, like, oh my God, there is no safety net. There's, like, after a certain point, there's no built-in safety net. You could end up without a place to go, and that that really shaped my decisions, and it sort of kept me up at night. And then it hit me one day that it wasn't just that people were out of money, it was that they were out of people. Like I was, sort of terrified after the experience of being like, oh my God, like, if you don't have money in this country, like, you're screwed. You're like, you're not going to get taken care of. And then it hit me that, like, actually, you could be out of money and still have lots of people that would take you in. And that's, I think, how it was, like, back in the day. I think, like, families were more connected, communities were more connected, and somebody got sick, or, somebody had a mental illness, or, or any of those things, and people rallied around and figured out, how to make sure that everybody essentially got what they needed. So I guess that's my thought, is like, how can we, like, change the culture to where, like, compassion is an actual thing that we live with, that we actually feel responsible for each other.
Also, tell me a little bit about your experience being homeless.
can I put this? I feel like it's a nightmare, to be honest. It's hard out here. Food they feed us is no facts. Shelters, girl, can't swim up the shelter, got big bugs and all that. Just trying to get away, trying to make a way to get out of there, get out the shelter, get on my own 2 feet, make it, do something better with my life, being honest.
What led you to being homeless?
Lost my job, couldn't pay the rent, been homeless for 2 years.
What have you been doing for those 2 years?
The last 2 years, looking for work.
Why haven't you been able to find a job?
They don't call me back.
I was just talking to my partner about how people end up homeless, and my experience knowing people and seeing people and getting to hear their stories, and really of the folks that I knew, there were definitely a big category of people for whom substance abuse was a big part of the reason that they ended up homeless, and for another big section of people it was definitely mental illness was a big part of it. Sometimes those definitely overlapped. And then for a lot of people, it was just simply that they did not have the support system. They didn't have families who were able to take them in. And again, sometimes all of those things were overlapping. Most of the time, I would say all those things were overlapping. But then there was a big section of people who I actually knew more intimately, which were folks who had serious medical conditions, who ended up just, running through their savings, running through their support system, and ultimately, ended up just with no place else to go.
On and off, I've been homeless roughly 2 years.
Single parent of 7 children, 5 which are with me currently. I have 1 in the foster care system, and I'm working on reunification with him. It all started around 15 years ago when I had my first baby. Dad was not involved at all. 2 years later, the second child came. And years after that, I had an additional 5. And just raising them by myself was a difficult task. My twin boys suffer from ADHD, mood disorder, and depression. I myself suffer from depression, which can, oh my God, I'm trying to cry, cause an episode at any time. Just hearing them, just me saying no could tick my twins off. My oldest daughter, she suffered from depression. Oh, excuse me. Just looking for support and help with children with disabilities is a day-to-day task. I feel like no one understands me. I have no real support with my family at all. My mom's gone. My grandmother is gone as well. My father isn't involved. My children's dads aren't involved. I really can't get no one to watch them, to have an outlet for myself. And then the resources that are available takes time. So I pretty much fell into the gap of trying to smoke weed and cigarettes, and it wasn't me, so I then tried to, just be me. And it got lonely after a while, it's just hard. And to have no support or no one you can really talk to that can understand what you're going through. Ooh, I'm sorry, I'm about to cry. I can't really talk to my sisters at all because they didn't raise their children. They were in foster care and were with their grandmothers. And so I feel like I had nobody.
Do you have any family in the area?
No.
Where's your family?
Sister staying with her friend, my mother in the hospital.
You go visit your mom at all?
Once, yes, I did. This is my mom.
How old are you?
26.
What do you eventually want to be in life?
Trying to own my own business.
What kind of business?
Like computers, like fixing computers.
Did you graduate school?
Yes.
What school did you go to?
Walbrook.
And then what happened?
Had a job, got fired. After that, shit, things got rough.
So explain to me in detail a typical day in your life.
Typical day of my life, go across the street, eat, then after that eat, take care of business. Try to find a job, get on my own 2 feet, get my own stuff.
For a good little while, I lived in that smaller row house, and so we got to see lots of people who were getting discharged from the hospital, and they just really, I mean, I remember people, I remember a guy who, worked at Amtrak for a long time, like had a good job, had a decent, was a fairly young guy, and ended up with a really bad case of asthma, and, couldn't work, and another young guy who had lupus, similar situation. Sometimes, those folks also had, alcohol problems or whatever, but it's sort of hard to say which came first.
My dad was an alcoholic. My parents split up when I was around 9 or 10. Ended up living with my grandparents. Graduated high school, had some college, worked, started working. I've been on my job for 16 years. And I have a hip disease, had an injury. Had to have surgery. I had surgery. Of course, they gave me painkillers. Girl I was dating at the time, she had dabbled in using, and so we started abusing the painkillers. My hip never got any better. Ended up losing my job. Continued using. I couldn't afford my prescriptions anymore, so ended up going to the streets. Buying pills off the street, and then that turned into buying heroin. It was cheaper, couldn't afford pills anymore.
Depression is a real serious condition. Some might think of it as just, not being able to cope with when things go wrong, but to me, depression has really taken over my life. I was in a public housing, and because of my children's disabilities, I allowed it to get the best of me, and I really didn't understand the disabilities, so therefore I just let the depression take over, and I just stopped caring. I wouldn't wash my body, eat, pay bills. I would just give my money away, whoever needed. And a lot of my family members and friends took advantage of that. I wouldn't pay my rent, pay my phone bill. I mean, it was just really, really bad. So I lost my house, moved in with my sister, she also suffers from depression, and the monies that I was giving to her, she wasn't paying her bills. And like 2 weeks before we got the eviction notice, I went to pay the bill, and they said they did not want the money. So I had to then rely on the homeless unit to provide shelter for me and my children. The dads, I try to reach out to them, but it's like they think I'm crazy and they don't want to put up with different things. And, I mean, it's just hard. But I keep on moving. I get up, I do what I'm supposed to do. I do what I'm able to do, humanly possible. And I just pray.
We as a society need to have a conversation on capitalism. You know, on the costs of capitalism. It's like, it's homelessness, yeah, but it's so many things that we're neglecting. It's so many young people who are not getting what they need. It's so much exposure to violence. It's so much, unemployment. It's so much domestic violence. It's so much of everything that I think has to do with our neglect of any value other than making more money. We know all kinds of things about, making more money and being successful, and but I think we're really very, I don't even know the right word. I mean, we're very stunted in our basic human sort of skills. I think we need to have more than a conversation. I think we need to emphasize everywhere, as we're helping kids grow up, about basic human compassion and communication. I think most people feel like they have no idea what to do with their feelings. And I mean, I just feel like we're not taught anything about what to do with our feelings. And most of us have tons of them. And, lots of people end up doing all kinds of stuff with their feelings that causes all kinds of problems. And so yeah, I think we need to have a conversation about how to handle all these difficult feelings that come with being human.
So Marcel, what do you think it's going to take for you to get back on your feet and no longer be homeless?
Basically get a job. Get a job, take care of my business.
You have any insurance?
No insurance.
Where do you stay at? Where do you go when it's raining? If there was one thing in life you would change, what would it be?
We had a house fire. They witnessed their father abusing me, physical abuse. They were abused by their dad. I didn't know because I was in a work program with the Department of Social Service. It was mandatory in order to get the cash assistance. So a lot of things that went on I wasn't aware of. And that went on for about a year. What else did we do? They witnessed a boyfriend of mine, physical fighting. And my oldest son in foster care. So it was like he was there one day, and then the next day he was gone. And then the dad piece, because they crave for him so much. And it's like I'm the bad guy because I won't allow the children to see him, but he's nothing positive. So it's like, again, why would you want your children to hang around negative stuff? And just recently, they witnessed him getting locked up. So that was like real traumatic for them. They witnessed everything from the police slamming him to the ground. They took the gun and, so. And I'm learning about me, so I really wasn't able to express myself in a good positive manner. So a lot of that they picked up from me. But since I'm trying to turn everything around, it's hard for them to transition into better coping skills. But it's real rough because I feel like no one understands. I really do. This is rough. I wouldn't wish this on my enemy. Some of the things that I go through just within an hour of my life is like that I'm so taught. And all I get is, won't you do this and won't you do that? And it's not that easy. It really isn't. Particularly when you're doing it by yourself. Now, if I had help, yes. I probably would be in Hollywood somewhere, but I don't.
When I was employed, I had health insurance, and then once, of course, they let me go, that all ceased. Of course, economically, it changed who I was. Like I said, I became depressed. I was dealing with the injury. I was always active. I was an athlete. Did a lot with my kids, and I couldn't do that anymore. With the loss of money, it was a struggle to keep a place to stay. Ended up moving in with family members. So it affected me deeply. Changed who I was. It's hard to make sense of. We always want to be in control of everything in our life, and to have something come along that you can't control, it's hard to deal with. I became angry. I became, like I said, depressed. I isolated myself. I just didn't want to deal with people, the issues, not being employed, not being able to do things with my kids, not being active. Like I said, it brought out a lot of issues. Anger, depression, isolation.
But I think, stepping in when people are having a hard time and being there for them and, and building the kind of relationships where you feel confident that people will step in for you. That's what I think what people can do. Unfortunately, it's really hard, and it's super hard if you have a substance abuse issue, if you have a mental illness, or if you don't have a family that you grew up with that, has kind of taught you those skills. But they are learnable skills. So I think as a culture we can do a better job of teaching those kind of things about, what does it take to have long-term friendships and strong family relationships, and it takes a lot of good communication. And it takes a lot of commitment. And it takes a lot of compassion, I think, and a lot of love. And I think also it takes like a real shift in priorities around around maybe feeling like it's more important that I, put my energy into these things as opposed to sort of climbing the capitalist ladder. Hopefully that engenders like a more of a feeling of belonging to a human family, and hopefully that has some impact on what you think are the right ways as a society to help out people who are struggling. I'm not sure if that follows or not. I hope that it does. I hope that helping young people, with some empathy ultimately translates into citizens who don't think it's the right thing to simply be like, let them perish on the street if they can't pull themselves up by their bootstrap. I mean, hopefully those things go together. That would be my thought.
I know what it's like to bear this new soul. It is something that no one who hasn't experienced it can understand. Knowing this, what will we do about it? How can I help revive someone and show them that life is more than the nothingness they see? More importantly, how can I get people who cannot relate to understand, instead of just assuming that people like me are the way we are because that is how we were taught? No one taught my mother to be a single parent, except life. No one taught her to do drugs, except having to raise 2 children on her own. The darkening of her soul transferred into my sister and I when we were removed from her custody, basically to never see her again. The cycle is vicious, and until we have a real conversation about these issues, nothing will change. But we need more than talk, and it starts now.